Hi, I'm Miriam Cutelis. I'm a Cognomovement practitioner. Welcome to Let's Cogno That, where every video explores a fun and creative way to improve your life. Let's go have some fun. Hey guys, I'm Miriam Cutelis. Welcome to Let's Cogno That. I am a Cognomovement practitioner, as you guys might know, and I started my Cognomovement practitioner journey around the same time that I started to develop spiritually, or at least develop seriously spiritually, when around the same time. And I started doing Cogno, and something very interesting started to happen where I started to see the duality in all situations. And I'll give you an example because I know that sounds really weird. Okay, so here's an example that will highlight how, after doing Cogno, I started to see how situations had much more nuance to it, and things weren't as black and white. So I have a person that is an acquaintance, and I don't see her that often, but when I do see her, she often starts with her gaze down, like towards my body, and then moves up and then makes a comment about my clothes. And yes, it's never anything rude. It's never anything disrespectful, but it's also not like nice either. I believe that she thinks it's something that's nice to say to me. This woman, not knowing my situation, I really don't like people talking about my body at all in any way at all. And that's sort of when she would say things like that, it would always trigger me. And then there was a time that we saw each other very often within like a week period, and she said it every single time. And so it maybe like the third time I said to myself, you know what, tomorrow I am going to talk to this woman and I'm going to tell her that I'm triggered by her comments and really try to address it. But before I did, I went and I did my daily Cognomovement session. And I decided that that session I would work on her and I would work on how this made me feel, and just did a regular session on that. And what was interesting was that the next day, of course, on cue, she again says it. And a very curious thing happened, which was all of a sudden, I was able to understand her perspective, her lack of information about where I was. And I had like this immense compassion for both of us at the same time. And I was able to see how there was a lack of communication, there was a lack of information, and that is what was causing sort of the disconnect. And all of the sudden, what was more important is that I didn't feel like it was important for me to say anything anymore. Like I knew instinctually, I knew inside of me that she meant no harm to me. And in fact, I also knew that if I did talk to her, it would actually cause a huge chasm between us because she would be incredibly hurt. Again, her intention wasn't to hurt me. And what was more important on top of that was that I no longer cared about the comment. Like it no longer triggered me. And in fact, it was somewhat comical that I even ever thought that something like that would trigger me. Doing Cogno allowed me to see like the surround view of what was happening. And in knowing that, it gave me the ability to have more compassion. It gave me the ability to move past it and understand that it wasn't meant in any way to be harmful. And therefore, I did not need to be defensive. Why is this important for anyone who is on a spiritual journey? This is very important for anyone who's on a spiritual journey because we want to change the world for the better. We want to be part of that process. When we operate from a space or from a mind frame of duality, it is impossible to change the world. It is impossible because when you have right-wrong thinking, when you have thinking where we are moral and the other side is immoral, you're in duality. When you have the idea that in order to fight for something, you need to hate, or you have hate inside in order to fight the other side, all of those are still under the umbrella of duality. They're still under the umbrella of right, wrong. Other examples of duality might be whenever you have this idea that you need to fight against, fight for, the energy of fighting inside your body is essentially duality. I heard a talk a few weeks ago by this woman. Her name is Rhonda Akia, and I hope I'm saying her name correctly, but she came up with this new mantra, which I have delightfully adopted, which is called Unlearning Duality, and in which she talks about not reinvesting any energy into duality because of the harm that it causes humanity. And in it, she invites us to have equitable interactions right here where we are. And kind of, to me, that was a challenge to figure out, what does that look like? What does non-duality, equitable interactions in my own world look like? And she also talks a lot about old systems where someone has to win and someone has to lose. Does that system work for all? It doesn't work for all. Interestingly, I still see religious organizations that would agree with me fully that we need to get rid of old systems where someone loses and wins, yet continue to hold the duality of we're right, this person's wrong, or having very strong emotions in either politics or the news, or in against other religions, other people. So it is something that I feel like needs to be completely rooted out in our spiritual journey. We need to look within ourselves and find any and all hints of duality and root it out. So here, Rhonda Akia is encouraging me and challenging me to try to imagine what a world where there's no duality might look like. What does the world where there is no duality look like? What would education look like? What are our rights? What would jobs look like? Again, if the minute we push back against it, I feel like the pushback is the actual embedded system within us that is, just so solidified in it that we cannot allow ourselves to even go there. So I challenge you to try to imagine a world where there is no duality, where we are trying to unlearn duality, and again, find equitable interactions all around us all the time, and that we are part of that solution. And back to Cogno, I do believe that Cogno played an incredible part in this shift because it allowed my system to let go of my ego. Going back to my interaction with the acquaintance who would talk about my clothing or my body, there's no way that I would have seen all aspects of the situation as clearly if I was fully embedded into my ego. I think it's Byron Katie who says that the first act of war is defensiveness. Defensiveness itself is violence. Defensiveness itself is ego. And therefore, I think it's a great starting point for spiritual development to look at where we become defensive and actually work on that, because that is where duality lives. Ready to go. I'm about ready to wrap up. I just wanted to remind you, I'm a Cognomovement practitioner, and I would be very delighted to help you reach a place where you can find your own divinity and where you can start seeing all of your challenges in a new light. It's possible to live a life of joy, of prosperity, of growth, and hope. And I absolutely want to be part of that support system for you. Thank you very much.